All right, there's those folks. Let's get Facebook rocking and rolling here. Alrighty. Let's do it, Facebook. 1 and 2. All right, well, welcome in. It is Monday evening, and it's time for an episodes of Broncos for Breakfast for Dinner. We're filling in for the Mile High Huddle priests, the Mile High Huddle Up show, if you will, for our guys, Chad and Zach. They are in transit to Indianapolis, the center of the football world, this upcoming week. Gotta say, I'm a little bit bitter. I was up, did the combine 3 times when I still lived in Iowa, and my sister lived in Indianapolis, so I was able to go out there and talk to John Elway and brush elbows with Mace, Cecil Amy, Steve Atwater. God, nicest guy. So I'm a little jealous. Seattle, love Seattle. Far away from everything though, so not as far away as Alaska. And speaking of which, Eric, how are you doing today? I see we got some Facebook issues, of course, as we're running here without help, but we'll try it again here. But how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing good. A little bit tired. It's been a very long day for me, being up at 4:00 in the morning for the show. Granted, I didn't wake up that early for the show. Had some other issues that caused me to wake up and all that. And yeah, I mean, I'd love to get down to the Indianapolis for the combine. Every time I talk to Chad about it, he goes, I don't really think that's your thing. Still one of those things like I would like to experience at least once. Yeah. What I really want to get down to is I want to get down for the Senior Bowl. That's the dream for me is I want to get down there. But Senior Bowl's already in the past. We have the combine this week, and we've gotten a lot of news coming out of it already. A lot of players saying that they're not going to participate for one reason or another. My opinion, the best prospect in the draft, he's pulled out of it because he's working back from an injury, and Abdul Carter. But yeah, I mean, on top of all this stuff with the combine with the prospects, a lot of information comes out from it. That's when agents start to talk to everybody, and that's when all sorts of stuff starts coming out. And we're going to be digging into some of that. That's already starting to trickle out a little bit, even though the combine hasn't quite started yet.
Yeah, I think people are starting to report there as well. So we'll see what happens on that front. But yeah, it'll be a lot of fun. We're having some issues with Facebook, so hopefully we're not missing anybody too hard on that side since we are running without admin oversight today. So, I mean, gosh, we can do whatever we want now. There's no rules, but appreciate everyone coming in today. And let's say hello to everybody coming in as the show is rocking. We got Papa Bear, David Mickelrath over on YouTube saying, good evening, Broncos country, GB USA. Let's go, Bo. Let's go, David. Thank you so much for the $5 super chat and supporting us here today as we fill in for, can't replace, but fill in, of course, for Mile High Huddle and Huddle Up, Chad and Zach. As again, they're on their way to Indy right now, hanging out, having a good time. Let's say hello to some more folks coming in. Chase Wellner, always appreciate you, Chase. Chase has rocked the Happy Gilmore picture here for a bit now. So appreciate Chase. He says, we've got a Nick and Eric show tonight. Yeah. Second, we did a show this morning, right? All the days run together when they're long enough. It was today, right? It's Monday.
Yeah. So I just have a question for Chase. When Happy Gilmore 2 comes out, are you going to update the profile picture for something from that?
I think he has to. Right?
I think so. It's kind of like it's the rule. You kind of got to update it a little bit.
Yeah. So, but it's a classic, right? You can't ruin the classic there. Speaking of classic, we got Todd coming in here. Hello, Broncos country. Chad and Zach. We'll take the hello. You can call me Chad. You can call me Zach. I don't care. Both good looking guys. So it works for me. Respect the heck out of them. It's fun that we can fill in for them. We got Steve coming in and says, what's up, Broncos country? Chad, Zach, let the scouting combine commence. Yeah, Eric, as the people start to trickle in and Facebook is connected right now. Somebody on Facebook side, say hello if you're there. Chad says hello from 33,000 feet. Well, I messaged you and Scott that Facebook was having some issues, so don't know how much you can do from there, but hallelujah. Chad, I don't know if you're flying with Zach, but maybe no Mile High Club. Just be safe up there. But moving forward here, the Mile High Huddle Podcast Club, whatever. Facebook again having issues. Is what it is. But the combine, you kind of mentioned it already. Let's get into some of the news of it as we start to go in here today. Some guys not participating. First, again, I want to reiterate, thank God the Broncos are not on the quarterback search of things, but Shedeur Sanders not throwing. Your thoughts on that? Does that matter? I know we got probably a lot of good crossover for the Colorado and Denver side of things.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not overly surprised that he's not. I kind of expected this after he pulled out of the scene out of the Shrine Bowl. Sorry. where it was reported that he was asked to by, a lot of those top teams, the Titans, the Browns, and the Giants, to not participate in the activities there, to just do interviews. He still hung around. He was still talking to the other players and everything, and still doing team interviews. So I'm not surprised at all he's pulling out of it. I'm not surprised Ashton Jeanty's pulled out of doing some of the workout stuff. There is one, though, that I think is very concerning. I think he had a good chance to, for me anyways, to rise up to be tight end number 2, Elijah Arroyo. And it's not the fact that he's not participating. It's the reason why. Suffered a knee injury at the Senior Bowl. Knee injuries are a concern coming throughout this draft process for him. So him not being able to participate because of a knee injury, that's probably going to keep him at tight end 3 for me. Just because, don't get to see him, don't get to see the testing, don't get to see the drills, and yet it's another knee injury for him. He barely contributed for 3 years because of knee injuries.
Yeah, a big concern for him. I know that you had mentioned that he was closing the gap on Colston Loveland for you for potentially being tight end 2. Came in, had a really good Senior Bowl, probably the standout tight end at the Senior Bowl, along with Mason Taylor there. But Arroyo, the home run ability, the athleticism, was former a pretty big time recruit as well, and dealt with some injuries. It was finally a year where it was starting to come together for him. And unfortunately, here we are again. It's unfortunate also because for the tight end position, testing is so important, right? There's a lot of positions where testing, it doesn't matter so much, but tight end's one where there's a pretty strong correlator to their overall size and athletic profile compared to their hit rate in the league. I'd be curious if there's probably almost as strong of a hit rate for tight end succeeding based on their relative athletic score as there is the first round of the draft or their draft spot, right? Because linebackers and tight ends, the NFL cannot evaluate the haves from the have-nots coming out of college. It seems like, you go through the last decade of those two positions, and in the first round, it's dreadful. It's freaking dreadful. That is a really big issue for me. Again, maybe it's good news for the Broncos. I know injured tight end, red flag, rightfully so. You got a new medical staff in here in Denver, won the last 2 seasons now. It's not a big enough sample to say they're going to be that much better than every single person or every single team going forward forever. But maybe testing takes him out of the Broncos range. And now that he's not going to be out there at the combine testing, running the drills and everything, maybe he falls to 51. Maybe he's in the conversation. Maybe he's off the Broncos board because of that. I don't know. But what are your thoughts based on him not testing? Is he going to be in play for 51 where maybe he was moving up to that 20 spot before?
I think possibly. It's hard to say when you get to knee injuries because he's still going to do the medical process. He's still going to do the interviews. Everybody who's going, they're still at least doing that. So it's still going to get some answers about the knee, but he was one that I know that I think it was Dane Brugler on one of the podcasts or in one of his articles mentioned made a comment about how people that he's spoken with wants to see him test. They want to see one of the things that they really want to see with him was the 3 cone, which I think it's a 3 cone that has the really strong correlation with faster times with success in the NFL, as well as the 10-yard split for him. And so it's not being able to see those, it's going to hurt. And it could be a situation where if the medicals don't come back clean, maybe he's not in play at 51. Maybe he's in play in the 4th round then as a result of that. When you have medical issues, you can slide like that. And it happens. We see it happen every single year.
Yeah. And it comes to not only, sliding, but being off a lot of teams' boards completely. Yep. And, he had a good Senior Bowl, good athletic profile, pretty high recruit. But at this point, if he was going to be a first-round caliber player, he would definitely be an underdog. And it looks like my internet maybe fell off there for a second. I'm starting to get the windstorm here, so you let me know. Are you there? Hello?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. But yeah, let's he might be an underdog. So let's get into that underdog read here as we go forward.
So this basketball season, when your favorite star scores a bucket, we're going to give you an alley-oop opportunity to win money from watching sports with Underdog. Underdog is one of the leading sports apps, and you can play now in your state. Do you want to win up to 1,000 times your money? Well, you can with Underdog.
To play, choose whether a player will go higher or lower on one of their stats like points, assists, rebounds, and more. Underdog's got all your favorites, leagues, teams, and stars to choose from. Create entries with all basketball picks or mix and match across other sports. You can play with as little as $1, and if you get everything right, you can win up to 1,000 times your money. So turn $1 into 1,000 just with your hoops knowledge.
So download the Underdog app and sign up now using promo code MHuddle to unlock a special offer of up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you make your first deposit. Join in on the fun when you sign up with promo code MHuddle, claim your special offer today, and get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly upon your first deposit.
Must be 18 plus, 19 plus, Alabama, Nebraska, 19 plus in Colorado for some games, 21 plus in Massachusetts and Arizona, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Void in Colorado. Concerned with employee? Call 1-800-GAMBLE or visit ncpgambling.org. Arizona, 1-800-NEXT STEP or text NEXT STEP to 53342. New York, call the 24/7 HOPE line at 1-8778-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. All right, moving on here. Thanks again to Underdog. We want to say hello to some more folks coming in, hanging out with us. Hey, Facebook's working now. I didn't give up. So there we go. Appreciate it. We got DJ coming in. Good night, everyone. Well, don't say good night just yet, but good to see you, Pearl Heater. Always great to see Pearl. Hope you're doing well. We got Julian says, I know everyone is in love with Genty, but I am willing to take Hampton at 20 just in case Genty is gone. How about you? Hampton's very much in play for the Broncos at 20. I know that some folks have said that the gap between Genty and Hampton is not that big. Hampton's probably not as much of a home run threat. I don't know if he's got like the control/vision that Genty has, but he's bigger. He might be a little bit more powerful. It's different because the balance stuff is how power is displayed. Yeah. But he's right up there. He's a heck of a back too. And I would be 0% shocked that if the Broncos let him pass, he ends up wearing powder blue and yellow for Jim Harbaugh.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be overly sold on Hampton. He's a guy that I don't get why he's liked as much as he is.
Oh man,
I am much lower on him than the consensus is, and when I say that, I mean I'm not entirely sure he's going to end up as a top 100 player for me. I don't
shocking.
see it with him. When I watch him, I see nothing but vision issues, and maybe it's a bit of overcorrection on my part after dealing with all the vision issues we've dealt with Javonte Williams and same college and all that, but I just don't see it. I mean, there's those flashes that I see that are like, okay, like, yeah, maybe, but it's not enough for me to sit there and say, yeah, I would definitely take this guy, at 51, let alone at 20. Just too many instances of leaving yards on the field, and in college to the NFL, that isn't something we see corrected very often. So I'm very concerned with him. I am going to take another look at him here in a couple weeks after, let my eyes reset a little bit and see if my opinion changes. But right now, I'm not a fan of him.
I will say from my watching of him, I thought a lot of times I try to watch these guys chronologically, and I thought I saw it improve as the season went on. So maybe that's something that, North Carolina, we saw it last year at Drake May. Other than your guy Lampkin, not a very good offensive line there either. But the vision stuff, I felt like he was sometimes not patient enough, not in enough control in pressing the line of scrimmage. As far as like gaps stuff, though, I'm not as worried about it for power stuff. But outside zone team is probably going to prefer Caleb Johnson over Hampton. But one thing also that I think is being undersold about Hampton is the pass game impact. And it's not that I don't think he is. Like, he's not as explosive as Travion Henderson are going to be totally flexed out to be you're not going to confuse him for a wide receiver running routes by any means, but he is pretty darn good as a pass protector. He can run angle routes. He can run wheels out of the backfield. You can do some stuff where you're flexing him out if you want to go empty from time to time as well. So he's a complete back to me as well. Again, the vision stuff is concerning. I give him a little bit of a break there because the offensive line issues there. North Carolina just not good up front. And also I thought it improved. And I give him maybe a little bit of a grading on the curve there. It's like when somebody, they're not having a good grade in a course. And then towards the end, they're starting hitting A's. Like, okay, I'm going to give you a little bit of I'll bump that C to a C plus because I could see that you were improving.
Yeah, I mean, and as I said, he's a guy that I'll go back and I'll watch again whenever, and I do that whenever there's somebody that I am much lower on than the consensus or even much higher on than the consensus. I'll go back and I'll find three games, different games than I watched previously, and see those and see if anything's changed and compare notes and all that. And, in about a month's time, we'll see if my opinion on Hampton's changed a whole lot or if it still stays pretty much the same. I can't remember exactly what games they were, but I'm pretty sure they were all games within like the first 5 or 6 weeks of the season. So nothing towards the, real end of the season. So that, I mean, it could be a thing of he did show improvement during it. I just didn't watch those games to see that improvement.
Yeah. Absolutely. It makes sense. I know that that's the one concern, and I know it's the helmet scouting stuff too, but there is some Javonte Williams to his game.
Mhm.
I think he's a little bit more, I think his third gear is a little bit more explosive than Williams. And I think he's got a little bit more control than Williams. I also think he's a little bit better in the pass game than Williams was coming out as well. Now, Williams was paired with Michael Carter, so they really split those reps and he didn't get to show it as much, but Hampton was able to do all of it. But the vision stuff is, that's probably the biggest concern. He ran himself into his blockers more often than you would like. We got Daniel Berry Sports coming in here saying, hey, everyone, happy Monday. Good to see you. Hope you're doing well. DG asked if we're high on Beck. That is Beck out of TCU, V-Way of LSU. Weird transition for Beck in the college game. One of the few players who transitions from tight end to wide receiver. You don't see that very often. I can't even think of a singular player who went that way. Typically, tight ends are, former quarterbacks that were best athletes in their high school or former wide receivers. But Beck, former really good basketball player and the standout of the Senior Bowl this season. I really like Beck. I would be pretty shocked if he wasn't a useful player for 5-8 seasons in the NFL. Strong hands, heck of a blocker, inside-outside ability. I think that if he falls to the Rams round 2, they will gobble the heck out of him because of how he essentially blocks so well from slot that he can function as a tight end in a lot of reps. So I'm a big fan. I like him a lot. I don't think he's going to ever be a number one that your pass game can be funneled through as far as targets go, but just an all-around competitor, tough player, and somebody you love to have as one of your top 3 wide receivers.
Yeah. Isn't it Besh though?
I
Jack
thought it was
Besh?
Beck. Maybe it's Besh. I thought
I can't remember. I could have swore that, watching the Senior Bowl, they mentioned Besh, but I could be mistaken on that too. But anyways, that's neither here nor there at the moment. But yeah, he's one of those guys that I gravitate towards when I'm watching receivers, guys who will give that extra effort as a blocker, who are capable blockers. One of the better blocking receivers in the NFL, Jennings with the San Francisco 49ers, I absolutely loved him coming out because of what he was able to do as a blocker. And I like Beck because of his capabilities as a blocker. It's a big reason why I like him. I think that he has the ability to be not a true number 1 receiver, but I think he can be a high end number 2. I think you and I were talking once, and you kind of brought up a Eric Decker type comparison in the good ways. And I can definitely see that as well with him. And I think with the way that this Broncos wide receiver room is built, this is the type of receiver that they could really use and utilize because they don't have somebody like him. He's quite different from the other receivers they have. And he's more potential for the room, which is all the room is at the moment, pretty much. But when you have young receivers, you want to stack complementary skill sets. So that way, especially when you have somebody like Sean Payton as the play caller, because then you can be different and creative with what you're designing for your offense, which can also translate to helping out Bo Nix and helping Bo Nix take that step farther with his growth and development.
And the LSU pronunciation guide reads it as Besh as well. So there we go. We also got a shout out to Alec Aomanor. So I don't know if I pronounced that one right. Aomanor from Canada to Stanford and absolutely just dominated Colorado 2 years ago. He's another one who blocks his tail off and competes. I wish he was a little bit better in terms of contested catches in tight areas. I feel like you have to highlight stuff, but just a little erratic. But another player, day 2. There's some day 2 options. Royals, as well as another one I really like, day 2 out of Utah State. But yeah, we got more coming in here. We got George Fox just saying hello, guys. Well, just hello to you, George. Appreciate you coming in, hanging out. Always appreciate you coming in. We also got our guy Phil coming in, says, good evening, Nick and Eric. Is it this Monday? I'm really confused. Just stop by to say hello. I wish it was Tuesday, but it's Monday. We're hanging out, having a good time. William comes in and says, I think Travion Henderson fits more than Hampton. Genty would be nice, but he won't be in the cards for us. I wouldn't rule out Genty in the cards for Denver. You don't know. I mean, he had a lot of carries. It's a deep back class. Things happen. Who knows, right? We cycle through it every time. Loveland won't be there. Henderson won't be there. Oh, now Hampton's going before. I mean, we'll see, right? 20th overall. It's 20 exclamation point, right? As far as the scenarios that could play out before the Broncos pick. So we'll just see how it plays out. But I wouldn't rule out Genty just yet. I think there's a handful of guys we can rule out, Abdul Carter, Mason Graham, Travis Hunter, barring like a felony or something.
Yeah.
I don't think that's happening. But no, anything can happen. As far as Henderson goes, this is a huge week for Henderson. Injury. And also, you also want to talk about somebody with some questions. I have questions about, I still think I wouldn't be fine with him. 20 overall seems a little rich, but I still really like him. But like, I have some questions about his between tackle vision as well. And also, I have some questions about his ability to break tackles. Despite having a decent frame, it's not his game. It doesn't have really good balance if somebody gets a hand on him. I won't call him Tatum Bell as far as never breaking a tackle in his life. But there's some questions there. But I love Henderson too.
Yeah, he's one of my favorites in this running back class. And to your point about what you were saying with Warren, Ginty, and Loveland not being there, the big thing is they don't play valued positions. And that's when you hear people like Dane Brugler or Daniel Jeremiah or the one ESPN guy whose name is escaping me at the moment.
Mel Kiper?
Mel Kiper, yeah.
Matt Miller?
Whenever you hear these guys talk about them, the one thing they mention is like, yeah, we could see them go top 10, top 15, but they play a devalued position. And not only that, and you touched on this, is they're in a deep class that typically pushes guys down. Adding into that, I wouldn't be surprised if all three of them are gone by 20, but I wouldn't be surprised if all three of them were still available at 20. Just because of the value of the position and how deep those classes are. And I think that the Broncos, at the very least, one of those guys will be there. I think that's a pretty safe bet. At least one of those three guys will be there at 20. I don't see all three of those guys at a lesser value position going in the first 19 picks.
Yeah, but you never know. So it's important to be flexible when it comes to the draft. And heck, two of them might be there and you say, you know what? We don't even like him that much. We're trading back. So you never know. Not really Sean Payton's MO, but I think I'd rather follow the Eagles model of having money and trading up and trading down versus the Saints of only trading up, having way less picks, and then ending up in the actual hell that they're in right now. That's a bad situation. Not in a bad situation. Oh, and as far as your comment here, we'll get you, David. Henderson fits more than Hampton as far as the Sean Payton offense. I just don't think that's necessarily true because I'm looking for a modern day example, and it's obviously what the Lions have done with Ben Johnson. They had Knuckles and Sonic, right? So your Hampton is more of your Montgomery, Mark Ingram type, if you will, where I think Henderson's more of your Gibbs. You need both right now. I guess in theory, in the room, you could have Estime end up being that guy. I think, what we saw last season, I'm not counting on him by any means. A fifth-round pick. Oh, we still have him here. Well, he was a fifth-round pick. Like, look at fifth-round picks historically. It's not very good odds. So it's nice to have him here, but he's not keeping me from adding anybody at this point, at least in the first, whatever round. You're talking later, too, like Damian Martinez. Good luck. Beat out Estime. We'll see. But as far as, Henderson fits better than Hampton, they both fit. They just fit the opposite roles.
Yeah, and with Sean Payton, too, especially when you look through his history, he's always utilized those two roles. Do you know how many times Sean Payton has had a single runner go for over 1,000 yards rushing in his career?
I don't know. No,
I think it's twice. It might be 3 times. I know one of them was Mike Ingram. He might have had done it twice, and then Deuce McAllister, his first year in New Orleans. He's always utilized this 3-back rotation. That's very much a 1A, 1B, and then we have our number 3 guy. And I actually did an article on it a couple weeks ago that really went into it and broke it all down. So yeah, I mean, it's when you start talking about better fits, there really isn't a right answer. There really isn't a better fit for Sean Payton's scheme outside of somebody who is exclusively an outside the tackles runner, as in somebody who doesn't offer a lot in the passing game, doesn't offer a pass block, a very limited guy. Mm-hmm. That's the only way that you're really getting somebody who doesn't fit what Sean Payton wants to do with his running game on offense.
I'll say about Sean Payton and his offense, I know we always get it for like defensive guys, like they have these like very small, like Bill Belichick was king at this, like finding these very specific roles for defensive players, these niche guys that won't fit for every single other teams, but man, they're going to find a role and he's going to do that job on the defensive side of the ball. On the defensive side, Sean Payton's kind of the offensive side of that with weaponry. Now you have your baseline offensive line setting everything, right? But he will mix and match. It was an issue early on for the Broncos offense, right? Like the talk about the too much personnel, but he loves to have just so many different packages and guys in these very hyper defined roles. So again, two different guys, two different skill sets. They if you're taking Sean Payton at his word, which you never know at this time of year, right? But Hampton doesn't necessarily fill the joker role. He can be a pass catcher. I don't think he's truly a joker, but still, they could use either type of those backs right now with where the room is at. Jeremy says, "Yo, what's up, guys? Go Broncos, go Jeremy." Thank you for coming in over on the Facebook side. Sorry, we had some Facebook issues earlier. David coming in with the $4.99. David, keeping the lights on. Thank you so much, David. We always appreciate that coming in. If you guys, want to be like him and support us, we always really do appreciate that. He says, would you guys be surprised if the Broncos took a linebacker at 20 because there are some good linebackers? I would be a little surprised just because it seems like they're gearing up to spend big money on a linebacker this cycle. Everything we'll get into it. We need to get into it here. The Kliss article makes it sound like Singleton's back. I would be shocked if he's gone based on the conversation or what Kliss spelled out in his most recent article. Shout out to Mike Kliss, one of the OGs. And I'd be shocked, but at the same point, you're picking at 20. If there's somebody you're head over heels in love with, I wouldn't be too afraid. Now, it's the same conversation with me as tight end, right? You look at the last decade of first round picks at linebacker and tight end, it's a freaking graveyard. I mean, it is bad. And then you add in the combination that the linebackers that are in the first round of this class are a little bit hybrid-ish. And then you have Vance Joseph. Two of those busts at linebacker were Vance Joseph Cardinals defenses. And with Zaven Collins and Isaiah Simmons. So not all on Vance Joseph, I don't believe. But so you talk about Jalen Walker, he's going to be an edge. I mean, he played some off-ball stuff early on. Remember what Von Miller did his rookie season, right? The 4-3 Sam stuff and then transition down. Maybe there's some of that stuff going on, even though you don't really see base that much. Walker's physical enough, long enough, rocked up enough. He's going to play edge. The one who stands out is Jihad Campbell. Big, athletic, young. I'm not exactly sure what his role is going to be. He's still working on the instinct stuff. But, man, when you just have that requisite size and length and athleticism and the ability to come down and do some edge stuff, especially if you're living in a sim pressure world, mug looks, he's enticing, I'll say. But I just don't think they're going to make that investment. I'll mock it at some point. I'll do it, but I don't think they'll do that.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be a little surprised for it. I mean, all the reasons you just said, they're gonna spend big. It seems unlikely that the Philadelphia Eagles are going to be re-signing Zach Bond. They're having their own financial issues that they're going through with their salary cap that they've got to try to figure out. There's also a lot of talk that they're trying to make a strong push to keep Milton Williams, that he is their priority on the defensive side of the ball. If Zach Bond doesn't get re-signed, I think that's the obvious fit there. Talking about the Mike Kliss article, he kind of shut the door on Nick Bolton a little bit.
Yeah, he
did. Which was a little surprising. So yeah, I would be a little bit surprised. And also, I don't think that there's a linebacker here at 20 because the conversation with Campbell over the last week or so has flipped, with a lot of people now saying that he's going to be an edge in the NFL level. He's going to transition back to that because that's what he was initially recruited to at Alabama, but he got moved to linebacker because he's such a freak athlete. They wanted him on the field, and they had, Will Anderson and all these other talented Dallas Turner. Yeah, thank you. All these other talented guys at the edge position. And so he got moved a little bit, and there's a lot of expectation that he's going to be moved back. And that's one thing to keep an eye on for him with the testing this week. That might settle down what position he plays. Maybe
a little Anthony Barr-esque from Jihad Campbell. A little throwback for some of you guys of that interesting size and hybrid stuff going on there. George Payton pick, I believe, assistant GM there with that one. But thank you so much for the super chat there, David. We appreciate that. And yeah, getting into Kliss's article here today, it talks leading up to the combine. First thing he gets into is the running back position. Free agency lists are Rico Dowdle from the Cowboys, Aaron Jones from the Vikings, Najee Harris from the Steelers, A.J. Dillon from the Packers, Nick Chubb from the Browns, J.K. Dobbins Chargers, Ty Johnson Bills, and Alexander Mattison Raiders. I'm going to be honest, I'm not super enthralled with any of these running backs in this class. I would rather I think you're probably in a position and you can be flexible enough that you can target a running back day 2, even like or 2 day 3, and you can go get multiple guys. But if there's like, Aaron Jones, a 1-year contract, maybe it's a 2-year contract that's essentially a 1-year contract. Ty Johnson just for the receiving ability. Some of those do interest me a tad, but none of them are special players by any means. And I'm not looking to spend much, if anything, close to veteran minimum ish for them.
Yeah, I would not be surprised if the Broncos end up making a run at Aaron Jones, because he really does do what, talking about how there's not really great, one fit better than the other, but Aaron Jones is one of those backs that can do a little bit of everything in that Sean Payton offense. One of the better receiving backs, and I think Cliz mentioned this in an article, that he's the better receiving back out of the guys that Cliz mentioned. The one name that I'm very intrigued by, and I know it's going to get a lot of flack, Nick Chubb. I've really come around to it because I don't think he's going to sign a big deal. I think it's going to be a 1-year prove it deal, see if he can stay healthy and try to cash in next year. And depending on what that's for, I know you just said near vet minimum. I'd be willing to go up to $4 million per year for Nick Chubb, because if you hit on that, that is such a big boom for your offense. But you have that risk. That's why 1 year, $4 million, that's a fair deal. I wouldn't mind doing that. But I'm more concerned with going Dowdle's way, even though he's one that was recently linked. Denver was named a best fit for by CBS Sports recently, and so Nick Chubb, I think, is the guy that I wouldn't mind seeing them go after if the contract is right.
Yeah, I think, and none of these guys are big enough needle movers that they're going to keep you from going running back at any point in the draft either. Just like your current room shouldn't keep you from going running back at any point either. Listed a lot of running backs in the draft side of things. I'm not even going to name them all. He even leaves guys out, right? It's just it's a really good draft class for the running back position. So yeah, we'll see what happens there. I also tight end. I think tight end's interesting. I think there's some serviceable names here, and I think there's going to be some cuts as well. So Tyler Conklin, Jets, Mike Gesicki, Bengals, Juwan Johnson, Saints, Mo Alley Cox, Colts, Zach Ertz, Commanders, Harrison Bryant, Raiders, Austin Hooper, Patriots. We're following the market, right? There'll be some other guys resigned, but I would be surprised if Denver didn't bring in one of these guys. Highlighted here is he highlights Ertz, Gesicki, and Juwan Johnson. And obviously Juwan Johnson connection with the Broncos. I'll be curious if they go Juwan Johnson or if they maybe even go with Alan Lazard, who's essentially a tight end at this point, move tight end piece at this point, not listed here, but another one of those kind of guys. But I think they're going to bring in at least somebody at tight end to probably take Lucas Kroll's spot on the roster. I think there's still a role for Atkins, still a role for Troutman, but replacing Kroll prior to the draft. So you're not like, if we don't take one of the ones in the top 3 rounds, we're not going to be able to run 12 personnel like we want. Like, I think they'll sign somebody just to raise the floor.
Yeah, I mean, and it's, as you said, there's a lot of serviceable options out there. I do think they'll make a play at Juwan Johnson just because of that familiarity. I'm curious to see what's going to happen with the trade market and cuts as well. There's a lot of veteran tight ends that people are assuming are going to be available via trade, and if they don't get traded, possibly cut. One name that is a little bit surprising to hear go around is George Kittle. Mark Andrews has been a name that's been floated around. Evan Ingram, as well, in that type of market. But talking about the tight end position, it is a position where they kind of have to add a veteran just because of how long it can take for a rookie to translate. You don't get Brock Bowers every single year. I mean, there's been some other good years from rookie tight ends. Noah Fant had a pretty good rookie season. TJ Hawkinson had a pretty good rookie season. Like, you can get those, but Denver needs a difference maker at tight end basically almost immediately, and the odds of getting that out of even Tyler Warren is unlikely, just because of his caliber of play and the type of player he is. So you almost have to, and I'm not just to upgrade over Lucas Kroll, but to add competition with Adam Trautman, who was downright terrible last year. He's supposed to be this hybrid guy who can block and catch, and he did all right receiving, but his blocking was almost a liability the majority of the time.
Yeah. We got Eric Flynn coming in with the super chat here over on Facebook, and hits us also with the how do you guys feel about Irv Smith? Little small. I mean, just kind of a tight end 3 type, veteran minimum. Again, add some competency. Not much of needle mover, probably third tier this class. So again, I'm not against it per se, but never really took hold from that Alabama team going to the Minnesota Vikings in the third round. So again, the better options out there, but could be somebody to at least move the needle a little bit. Moving on now, he also mentions tight end. As far as the draft, Tyler Warren, Colston Loveland, Mason Taylor, Gunnar Helm, Elijah Arroyo, Harold Fannin Jr. I feel like he's missing somebody here at tight end. I'm not sure who, but talks about Helm being from Colorado. Terrence Ferguson's also from Colorado. Feels like Denver will probably draft a tight end at some point. It's also, I mean, gosh, I really love a lot of the day 3 tight ends as well. I think it's a really good, you're going to have an option round 6. Every single mock we do, we take one round 6 that we really like. But yeah, it's no surprise there. The common names. Next, he talks about linebackers. Doesn't highlight any of them, surprisingly. But Nick Bolton, Ernest Jones, Zach Bond, Dre Greenlaw, Bobby Wagner, Terrell Dodson, Willie Gay Jr., Devin Bush. Says, don't think the Broncos will go Bolton here. He's a superb linebacker. He's just not the fleetest of foot. Broncos need an inside backer who can run to complement Alex Singleton. A tackling machine will be returning from the season-ending ACL injury. This might be a hot take, Eric. You probably will agree with me, though. But Alex Singleton shouldn't really impact who you're adding at the linebacker room, in my opinion. At this point, he talked about going to be 31-32 last year of his contract. Tackling machine, I'll have 2 tackling machines. I don't care. Just sign me the best guy, and that's going to be your son as far as the linebacker position is concerned. Everything's going to rotate and revolve around that. So I'm not against Bolton. I don't know if Kliss is insider knowledge here or just spitballing, but Bolton's my number 1 for sure. Even though he's not, unbelievably athletic in space, he's so instinctual in the right place, right time that everything in front of him, he's still there in time. Now, if he's asking to turn his hips and run with guys, it can be a problem. But again, I'm not as worried about that. Last year, the Broncos were the number 1 defense in football against tight ends, according to DVOA, which is shocking, I know, but really bad against running backs. I think he sniffs out the screen game and is good against that. So I like Bolton. I'm surprised Kliss has him as a somebody they're against. And I see Wade coming in and says Jermaine Sherwood, also kind of a linebacker safety hybrid. I know he's a tenacious guy for that Jets team. I would be surprised if he didn't follow the Jeff Ulbrich to the Falcons because they really need linebacker help too, but you never know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind Nick Bolton. I'm not sure he would be in my top 3 wants at linebacker. I mean, I see those issues that you have in the passing game. He's so instinctive. He's rarely out of the wrong in the wrong position, and that can work. I just really question how much of that is that Steve Spagnuolo scheme. And there was a podcast during the season that they really went into the Steve Spagnuolo scheme and how it simplifies things for the linebackers by giving them less on their plate, so to speak. And they said that Nick Bolton is a little bit of the exception to the rule there for that scheme, but it's still not, what you see in most schemes with what's put on him. So I do have concerns there. He's not the guy that I would go. I would prefer somebody who is, offers up a little bit more in coverage, especially if they are going to keep Alex Singleton. But I am with you. I would not be basing my decision with what to do at the linebacker room on Alex Singleton. I'm in that camp where I don't think they should cut him. But if they sign somebody big at there and they have a chance to get somebody else on a cheaper deal, then I'm all for cutting Alex Singleton. If they want to bring in 2 new linebackers, I'm all for it. Just because he is very overrated, tackling machine, but complete liability in coverage. But anyways, with Nick Bolton, it's one of those things. I am a little bit confused as to why, he's kind of being written off by Mike Kliss. Unless it is, insider information, which it very well could be from Kliss, or, just going off of, what some people have said about the scheme of the Chiefs benefiting him so as much as it possibly has.
Thing is, I think the Broncos also don't put too much on their linebackers as far as the processing. It's one gap. It's very, reactive versus having to think multiple things, reading the defensive tackles and then having to make them right in front. It's, it's downhill, blitz centric. And that's one reason they were probably good against tight ends this season, right? Is that they don't put them in positions where they are going to struggle like that. But no, yeah, we'll see. Broncos are going to make a splash at linebacker regardless. We'll see what happens. I mean, you talk about concerns about all these guys are headed free agency and they're going to have questions. But like Zach Bond, 1 year wonder, playing behind an incredible defensive line and really good cornerbacks as well, and a ball control offense on the other side, right? So Abe not really asked to have to play in disadvantaged situations, right? They were able to dictate a lot. So that's questions galore with all those guys. I like the profile of Bond because I love especially if you're Denver cover one blitz centric, Bond's ability also as a edge player before that makes me excited about the blitz profile and that athleticism downhill and the physicality. But I'd be happy with anyone. And finally, from Kliss, it talks about safety, free agents. Holland is out there. Hafanga, he's listed Bynum a few times, so I'm curious what's going on there. Bynum's fine. Justin Reed from the Chiefs, Harrison Smith, Trevon Moehrig, Julian Blackmon, Jeremy Chin, Will Harris, Andre Sisco, and Justin Simmons listed here as well. He says Broncos have interest in Bynum, among others. Reed was a standout for the Chiefs during their three-peat Super Bowl run. And he also lists a lot of safeties: Manowari, Starks, Watts, Winston from Penn State, Sanker from Virginia, Sebastian Castro, Iowa, go Hawks. And he says, if this is a must, it's number 4 on the list of priorities. Broncos may want to upgrade the position currently occupied by PJ Locke, who is due to make non-guaranteed $4 million. JL Skinner started playing more as a big nickel or third safety, but didn't play defense in the final game against Buffalo. It's because they were getting run on to heck. No reason for a third safety when you can't stop the run already. Strong tackler who could emerge as special team standout. So Denver's also looking for a safety. A lot of names there. PJ Locke's fine. I think he's better as a third safety than a starting safety. And yeah, of course, if they can upgrade the room, I don't see any reason why not.
Yeah, I mean, Bynum makes sense. He is a better version of PJ Locke. Works really well downhill, has some issues in coverage. But one thing he does do a little bit more, he is a little bit more of a risk taker in coverage, which does lead to more plays on the ball. Also led to a couple more touchdowns than, I think 2 more touchdowns than PJ Locke allowed this season, but 3 interceptions to 1 or none this year, and also broke up like another 6 passes. So Bynum's aggressiveness also fits with what Vance Joseph wants. Upgrades over PJ Locke and can put PJ Locke back as that third safety, which I do think is where his best role is for him, instead of a starter, special teams guy, third safety. And that is if they keep him, because with that non-guaranteed contract, they can save up. It's not a lot, but it's not nothing either in salary cap space by moving on, especially if they go out and they sign Bynum. Now, I did an article on this because there's another article Kliss mentioned on it, and I dug into it, and SpotRack.com has Cam Bynum with a market value of $17.7 million on an average per year basis. And if that is his actual market, no way in heck am I anywhere touching anything near that. He's a guy that at most I'm about 6 to 8 million, depending on the length of the contract and how much you're guaranteeing.
Yeah, absolutely. He's fine. We got Gene coming in, said, good to see you guys. Hoping to get Tez from Oregon. Have 2 of Bo's old college teammates. That'd be cool. It'd be cool. Tez is a size outlier. Doesn't have like historical length issues. But if he's there in the 4th round, I'm in. I think 3rd round might be a little rich for me for such a diminutive player for a team that doesn't want to be 10, 11 personnel as much as they want to be 21 and 12. Just again, might be just a little rich. But interesting player, no doubt, and seems by all accounts a great kid. So pulling for him despite being a all-time size outlier.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys checked out my worst case scenario mock, he was my mock in the 3rd round, and it was simply because of that size out being that size outlier that he is, and all that. And I think that there's a role you could use for him. I don't think that role is clear or defined in Denver because of who they already have on the roster. But if you get to that, I wouldn't say 4th round. I still think that's a little bit rich for me. But if they trade down, if they're one of those 6th round picks, or even if they somehow get a 5th round pick, I'd be fine with that. It wouldn't surprise me if he's off the board by then. But for me, if he's going top 150, I'd rather let another team take a risk on that instead of taking the risk myself.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this has been Breakfast for Dinner, guys. We got to roll, but appreciate everyone coming in here. Make sure you're following Eric and I on Twitter. Eric's at Erick Trickel. I'm at Nick Kendell, MHH. Also follow us at Mile High Huddle. If you haven't done so yet, we're over at facebook.com/Mile High Huddle and facebook.com/Mile High Huddle pod, and share over on YouTube. Shout out to our star givers today. If we missed you on Facebook, I'm sorry. We're running solo here. So I know Eric Flynn always comes in. So appreciate you, Eric. We also got David Yunkin and our David's here, Papa Bear as well. You guys have a great rest of your day, Eric. We'll see you again Wednesday morning. Everyone continue to choose kindness and compassion. Combine week, always fun. Go Broncos.